Spears with Hannah Becker. Today's conversation promises to be an insightful one with a remarkable guest. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a regular listener, we're so glad you're here. Our goal is to bring you closer to the innovative leaders and thinkers shaping our future. And today, we're thrilled to welcome Jim Cardoso. Jim is the Senior Director at the Global and National Security Institute at the University of South Florida. He retired from the U.S. Air Force in 2018 after a 30-year career, most of it spent in special operations, aviation, and leadership roles. Jim's been married 35 years. He's got 3 children, one of whom is a captain and a pilot, just like he was in the Air Force. Well, welcome to Tipping Spears, Jim.
Thank you, Hannah. It's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, so can you start it off today by kind of telling us where your story begins?
Okay. How long do you got? No. Well, so born in New Jersey, raised there as well. First 18 years of my life were in the same house, in the same bedroom, literally. Middle class family right outside of Philadelphia, actually across the river. And really, as far as, things happening now, the whole Air Force career, where that began was kind of wanting to do something different. The high school I went to was an excellent high school, actually, and a lot of the students did place in colleges, but a lot of the colleges in the local area, and there's some excellent universities in the Philadelphia area. But I wanted to go somewhere else. I wanted to go somewhere different. Didn't really travel much as a young man, so I was looking forward to do that more. And through various research and looking into different possibilities, ended up at the Air Force Academy in Colorado, which is both far away from where I grew up. Again, not that I didn't like where I grew up, and I visit there all the time, but just again wanting to go out and see the world a bit. So that led me out to Colorado at the Air Force Academy, and again that started the journey as well into the Air Force, into aviation, and into being part of the military team and leading men and women in combat.
So was there a particular event or person that served as a catalyst for your career?
I can't think of a person. But I would say, and maybe no particular event, but again, just that kind of, maybe that desire that a lot of people have to make a difference, right, in the world.
Yeah.
They want to make their mark. They want to do something that actually has impact. And people pursue that different ways. Some don't hardly pursue it at all.
Yeah.
That's just a reality. Some are not given the opportunity to do so, right? And I think that just that desire to do that would be maybe not a catalyzing event, but just an overall a pervading sense of what the next step was going to be. And that, again, that led me to leaving the kind of the Philadelphia area, going 3/4 of the way across the country, someplace I'd never visited there. I know when people, like my son went to the Air Force Academy, as you said, he's in the Air Force, and I was familiar with the place, of course, and we visited there too, so he could get a sense if that's what he wanted to do. I didn't have anything like that. I saw brochures. Remember, this is the 80s. There's no interwebs or anything like that. So there's brochures. Nobody from my school had ever gone to the Air Force Academy before, because and so it was very much outside the norm. But again, that was probably the catalyzing event that moved my life in a different direction from kind of where I thought it was going to be all through high school. I had a kind of affinity for tech engineering. I figured I'd go to college for tech and engineering. Air Force Academy is very good at that as well. The price is right. Thank you to the taxpayers. And also that opportunity to fly was interesting. I'd never flown before. I had no private pilot's license. I'd never been on a small aircraft. I'd been on one flight on a commercial airliner. So I had you hear the stories, I'm probably already going down rabbit trails, but just, and you can bring me back, but you hear the stories about people who flew over their Air Force career and they looked at the stars as a young man or woman, or their parent flew or whatever. I didn't have any of that. It didn't really start to become a potential possibility until I was late teens, about the time going to college, that this whole Air Force Academy thing started to materialize, and then said, okay, and serving, that sounds like making a difference for sure.
Yeah.
And flying for a living, that sounds interesting. I'd like to try that, I think. But I didn't know what I was getting into. I was as ignorant as a human being could be when I went to that place. And I had a steep learning curve, to say the very least. But that led to other things. Graduate there, then you start your career in the Air Force, your pilot career, and all the other things that followed ever since.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear kind of how you trailblazed your career, based on this kind of really kind of a conviction to do something meaningful, and the many opportunities that opened up for you with that.
Conviction, dumb luck, and ignorance. I mean, really, that's what it was. And just, okay, let's try this. And it worked out pretty well. And then had some opportunities that followed down the road over my career to be in the right place at the right time.
So Jim, every journey has its hurdles. Can you tell us kind of what some of the biggest obstacles were that you faced in your career, and how you overcame those?
I think that you're always, and again, when I went, it started with the academy that I really didn't know what I was getting into. So understanding how to operate in that environment presented its challenges. And I was a little rough around the edges, I think. And that the whole hardcore discipline thing, not really my forte. So working through that was sometimes challenging. I had my fair share of time in punishment mode at the Air Force Academy, and the different methodologies of punishment, whether it's they call it restrictions, where you're restricted on the weekends, or tours where we used to, I don't know if they still do it anymore. You march there with a rifle back and forth for hours at a time. I got to do my fair share of those. So that was a challenge. I would say that obviously making the transition early in my flying career from, I started out in jets as an instructor pilot, a first assignment instructor pilot as I graduated from pilot training. And then I moved into special operations. That was quite a jump. That was another leap of faith that I had no idea what I was getting into. But it was along the same line of, okay, if I'm going to do this, then I want to do it all the way. And special operations, they're on the tip of the spear. It's our motto. If part of the Air Force's role to go in the harm's way, that's what I want to do. And I want to be with the men and women and to do that as well. And I mean, beside marrying my wife, best decision I made was to go into SOF, because I just enjoyed it immensely ever since. But it's a challenge to make that jump and really understand what the SOF community is about, and to get to a point that you can excel in it. So sometimes, you just have to, you just go into these things. But in both of those, at the Air Force Academy, SOF, and I would say even challenges down the road as well, a lot of times it's the people you're surrounded by. And the friends you make, the colleagues you have, and the way you learn from other people, listen to them and work with them, whether it's at the Air Force Academy, whether it's a special operations community, that's what makes a difference. And if you're open to not assuming you're the smartest person in the room, and being part of that community and learning from them, taking that in and working to make yourself better, and presenting yourself as somebody who's truly trying to make yourself better, I think most people try to help you along that journey. And that's been helpful as I've hit some of those rough spots.
That's good advice. Can you tell us a little bit about your work at Global and National Security Institute? I know it's a pretty new program, and you were the first director, and been hearing lots of great things, and was just super excited to talk to you today about all the awesome stuff y'all are doing there.
Well, I'm very excited to talk about it too, because this is, we started in 2022, the University of South Florida, which, a lot of people in your podcast may not, well, they may have heard of them now because they just had a big win over the University of Florida. So now they're hearing about them. But some people may not have heard about them, but it really is a top tier research university. It's in the American Association of Universities, which I didn't know was a big deal until we were invited to join it. And then I learned more about it, and I understood that's a big deal to be part of the American Association of Universities. It is the top research universities in the United States and Canada as well.
Wow.
So you've got this research university, large university, 50,000 students. And there's a lot of capability here in Tampa, Central Command, Special Operations Command, or crosstown partners, that really wasn't being taken advantage of here at the university. It was an underserved opportunity. And so when the President Rhea Law, she had a personal relationship with General McKenzie when he was in CENTCOM, because she's been a part, she's a USF graduate. Undergraduate. So she's been a part of USF and the Tampa Bay community her entire life. And so when she was here, she developed a relationship with General McKenzie when he was a CENTCOM commander. Then he retired. She basically recruited him to help start the university. So I met him shortly after that, and I was employee number 3 of the Global National Security Institute, and we started it in summer of 2022. And to really take advantage of what's offered here at the university, here in the Tampa area, and the military government connections, and also just a growing and thriving metropolitan area that is the Tampa Bay area. And people who have not been to Tampa Bay, or especially if you haven't been here in the last 5 years, it's a very different Tampa Bay than you remember. It is growing like crazy with everything, innovation, entrepreneurial spirit. Tech is coming in here like crazy. A lot of defense industries are planting flags here as well. So there's a lot going on here. So we started it. We wanted to be at the boundary of technology and policy, we called it, and how the two interact and feed each other. We wanted to be a service to our crosstown partners, CENTCOM and SOCOM. So we look at things in irregular warfare and the Middle East. And obviously, there's a lot in both of those that you can explore. We look at military and society. We look at intelligence and history of intelligence and intelligence where it's gone in the future, and also educating the practitioner. And that's very important to us as well. How we educate, how we create the next generation of national security strategists and leaders. And so we're doing a lot of work in that, building upon the capability here at USF, but also even outside of that. We're going to have a big strategy competition next April that we're going to have 10 other universities send teams to. And so that's in the planning stages right now. So we want to provide opportunities so students can not just get an education here at USF, but then they can follow that education, they can graduate and then have a career in the national security enterprise. And we provide those additional experiences to do that. So again, I could talk for hours about this. We're limited time. We have a podcast as well at the Boundary. There's a quick plug. So when you're not listening to Hannah's, listen to ours. And I understand you can't take too much time, so I'll stop there. But again, I am really excited about what we're doing at Global National Security Institute. We have a team we're up to 18 people now. We have a extended fellows network of 50 to 60 fellows. And so I'm just really enjoying it. And I'm motivated to come to work. And I really enjoy being in that position.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting, Jim. It's been so cool to watch. I mean, truly how quickly y'all have grown. I remember when the announcement came out, and just to see all the waves y'all are making and the difference. I think all too often people don't recognize the critical value of these types of partnerships when it comes to defense and national security. They think, oh, well, that's just work that happens in the Pentagon or, at NSA. And it's like, no, there's a whole pipeline here. These collaborations, especially when it comes to, staying ahead of the curve or the tip of the spear on what needs to occur. So it's so exciting.
I mean, with your pod, there's a lot of great minds out there. There's a lot of people thinking great things. And then, just the opportunity, you find your ways to bring them together. So you can have conversations and do this analysis. And you can just help inform people and hopefully help inform the decision makers so that the decisions they make for national security are as informed as possible.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So what new developments around defense are you most excited about? I know you see lots of very cool, latest, greatest new things, but what's on your radar?
Well, you look, so there's a lot of, I mean, look, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, you've got the influence of technology, you've got CCA in the Air Force, you've got obviously AI is going to be impacting things across the board. Nuclear conflict is unfortunately a big deal again, just because of current events. So Golden Dome is going to be a big thing. One thing that a lot of people maybe aren't talking as much about is the MV-75. That's the aircraft that the U.S. Army is going to be adopting as its replacement for the Black Hawk. That's a tilt rotor aircraft. And again, we may talk about this more, but my background, I spent a lot of time with the CV-22 tilt rotor aircraft in the Air Force. Again, very fortunate. I was in position to be the first squadron commander in the Air Force and be the plank holder to get that capability, kicked off in the Air Force back in the 2005 timeframe. But I do think that aircraft is going to transform Army aviation. It's going to transform Army tactics and how they employ on the battlefield because you have capabilities you just didn't have before. And we discovered this in the Air Force. When you have an aircraft like that, then some of the ancillary capabilities that support it or work with it have to be adjusted as well. You can't have a helicopter support like a gunship or whatever. You can't have a helicopter fire support platform with a tilt rotor aircraft. Okay, those don't mix anymore. So you got to think about how you do that. So I'm really excited to see how that aircraft comes online. The CV-22, I'm a staunch advocate of it. I will be till the day I die. It's had some issues. I'm not going to deny that either. I've had some friends that have unfortunately lost their lives in the V-22. So I've lived that. At the same time, I believe in the capability. I think it has transformed how we execute soft aviation operations. And I think it's going to do the same for the Army. And the MV-75 will have learned the lessons from the CV-22. So Bell Boeing, they looked at some of the lessons learned and said, okay, the next design, maybe we need to adjust a few things. And they made some great adjustments. So I think the MV-75 is going to be an amazing aircraft. I'm really excited to see it employed.
Oh, that's really exciting. So in what ways have you seen it change since you started your career in the Air Force and then, now kind of your vantage point today? What are some of the shifts or changes that you've seen in that time?
Well, in the Air Force, with the advent of the Space Force, I think that's not part of the Air Force anymore, but it's its own service now. When I joined the Air Force, space was, I would say, not a big part of the discussion, quite honestly. And then along the line, we talked more about being an Air and Space Force.
Mm-hmm.
And then further down the line, all of a sudden, the Space Force becomes its own service. It's still there's no Secretary of the Space Force. They still fall under the Secretary of the Air Force. So there's still that linkage. And I think there will be that way for a long time. And I think that's a good thing. We're still just scraping the surface on what the space capability is going to be and how we really employ it. I was just having a discussion earlier today that even though, because as a separate service, usually there are representatives of each service within the different COCOMs. So like with CENTCOM, for example, there's AFCENT, there's Army Central, there's SOC-CENT, Special Operations Command Central. So they each have their capabilities within the Central Command AOR. And there is a Space CENT, and I've heard it's like 3 people. Okay, so there's just not enough people in the Space Force yet to really populate all the different areas that need to be populated so that it really becomes a fully integrated part of our overall combat thinking. So I think that some people think that space, we kind of got that figured out now. Not even close. Okay, not even close. So there's a lot that's still going to evolve with how space is part of what our future capabilities are and how we employ on the battlefield, whether it's a large scale conflict or even smaller scale conflict. Again, there's the other ones, people, talk about, again, the technology. There's plenty of podcasts and plenty of people are talking about technology and how that's going to impact. I will say the other thing that we've looked at here is also the impact of drones, and not so much the drone technology, but the thought process. It's the human thinking of how we employ drones has just taken off. And like most things, unfortunately, it takes a major conflict and a lot of people dying to spur that along, and that's what happened in Ukraine. But we are places with drone conceptualization that we would not have been without that conflict. And it's going to be very interesting to watch how the US military reacts to that. And they're already reacting, and how they employ that within their future operating concept. They're working through it now, but how we actually employ forces on the battlefield, it's going to be very interesting and very different than from what old timers like me are used to seeing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Jim. A few weeks ago, I had a guest who was a, a Reaper operator back kind of in the earlier parts of the Afghanistan war. And so he talked about kind of the impacts on the remote warriors, doing, which was something I hadn't thought
Oh,
of.
the psychological impact.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I saw that firsthand. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And then I think a week before your podcast, I had Dr. Amos Fox on here, and he was talking about how drones were what they were seeing kind of in the Ukraine, like how human behavior alters when it's like, under and these kind of two elements of human impacts with drone warfare are something that I really hadn't thought much of. It was just kind of getting lost in the technology of it. So I really kind of your point about the kind of the human impacts of drone warfare, it's really kind of like somewhat of a new chapter in a way, or a new element of how war is conducted, and then what the aftermath looks like.
Yes, a lot of people, drone, and first of all, the word drone, I mean, you have an image of this thing that operates by itself. Now, there is going to be more autonomy in the future, and that's another area of interest, and maybe a little bit of even potential concern going forward. But it can be a very human endeavor. I mean, usually if you're a drone operator, if you're a drone pilot, you're pulling the trigger using that thing, you're seeing the person. And then this whole back and forth, you are in the combat environment, then you come out of it, you're in it and out of it, and in and out of it. And early on, that was having a significant psychological toll on some of our operators. The good thing is that at least the US military has understood that. They've understood that better, so they're able to deal with these folks and make sure they have the right support mechanisms, and how they employ them, how they execute their operations, and then just how they are on duty, off duty, and how they understand that better. That's really changed over the years. I think I've read that even in Ukraine, they're taking some of those lessons, but I mean, they're in a fight for their lives right now.
Yeah.
So that's going to be your number one priority. But I think that we've come a long way since I was a group commander in charge of 2 drone squadrons in 2008 to 2010 at Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico. So I was front and center, very familiar. And at the time, the operations tempo was just brutal. And some of the operators are having some significant issues. So I think we're in a much better place now.
Yeah, well, no, that's good to hear. It's crazy to how quickly technology can change, and then kind of that ripple effect on all humans connected to it, especially on the on a battlefield.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
So, what are your top concerns about national security? In 2025, what stuff worries you, keeps you up at night? What are you tracking that you find particularly concerning?
Well, I think that there's always there's only so many resources you can employ, right? And for 20 years, we were focused almost solely on counterterrorism and and Iraq and Afghanistan. We came out of that. We talked about a big, pivot to China, pivot to the Pacific. And so we did that. But it seems that sometimes when we do these focuses, we sort of, I won't say forget, but I will say we definitely under prioritize and sometimes even undervalue the other things that are going on around us. So with a pivot to China, we're across town from CENTCOM. And, pivot to China. So, CENTCOM probably doesn't need as many resources because things aren't going to be as busy over in CENTCOM anymore since we pulled out Afghanistan and Iraq. Well, the CENTCOM AOR didn't get that memo. And anybody who watches the news sees that the CENTCOM AOR is as dynamic and as busy and as dangerous as it's ever been. And even there's less certainty as to where it's going next. So I think that that's something that we need to keep our eye on. And people are, but again, there's only so many resources that can be leveraged towards any particular problem set. And in the Air Force, the Air Force sort of sacrificed some of its future for the present because that was the right thing to do at the time in Iraq and Afghanistan to support a very close-in ground war. But as far as that, in a fairly permissive, not fairly, it was a permissive environment to operate. You could fly your aircraft with impunity over Iraq and Afghanistan. We're not going to have an environment in a near-peer conflict. So it's all these pushes and pulls that are, it sounds like I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I think that's the point, is that there's so many different things going on. It's hard to figure, okay, where do we focus our effort? Where do we focus our resourcing? Because there's only so much of it. I would say right now our national strategy is dynamic, to say the least, with the current administration. In some ways, that's good, kind of keeps the adversaries on their toes. In other ways, not as good, because sometimes our allies are not exactly sure where we stand. So all these things are put into the bowl and mixed together. And so I think that I read today that I read yesterday a story about the importance of having a national defense strategy, because there really hasn't been an update, I think, since 2022. And I would agree with that. It would be good to have an updated national defense strategy and understand, okay, here's overall what's important. And it's probably going to look very different than the one in 2022. Some people agree with it and some people disagree with it. That's okay. But as long as everybody understands, okay, this is our strategy moving forward, and that helps the resource decisions and the focus decisions. But it is challenging because the entire world there's just so many things going on, and it's hard to figure out where to put that focus without forgetting about something else that is could reach up and bite us.
Your description perfectly outlines the complexity of the situation.
Yeah, it's a complex environment, and that's one of those reasons I'm excited about GNSI. I enjoy being able to find ways to contribute analysis and be with a team that's really bought into what we do, to that way we can help decision makers maybe be a little bit more informed as they make these critical decisions.
So how has technology shaped, the way that we approach national security and defense? What ways have you seen technology shift, alter, empower things, and kind of leave its mark?
I was doing a podcast with Jeff Rogg. He's actually one of our assigned research fellows, senior research fellow. He just wrote a book on the history of intelligence. I mean, from the beginning of this country. Okay.
Wow.
And Jeff, gosh, I can't remember the title of the book now. I read it. But Jeff Rogg, look for his book. It's really great if you're looking for, again, from George Washington's day to the current day and then the future. And he's sort of an intelligence historian. You're wondering where I'm going with this. I'll get to that. And he said, as soon as you say we're unprecedented times, a legion of historians will shed out to prove you wrong, that we are not in unprecedented times. And normally they're right. A lot of people say, oh, this never happened before. Yeah, actually it has. Even he said, that being said, there are some aspects of how technology is just racing forward right now that do have some, okay, historians, don't lose your minds, some uniquenesses right now in how it impacts, operations, how it operates conflict, how it impacts how adversaries interact with each other. There's just a lot of things that are happening now with the technology, with the artificial intelligence, with machine learning, with greater autonomy, and everybody's racing to make sure they're not behind. So everybody wants to be in front, and you said yourself, sometimes the ripple effect of how that affects people and other things, it's kind of something that's caught up to later on. So as the technology races ahead, I'm not a technophobe, believe me. I mean, we need to make sure we have the best that we can to give to our warfighters. But things are really moving very quickly, and trying to find the applications to these capabilities on the battlefield to the modern warfighter, it could create some extremely opaque situations that we haven't even envisioned right now. That could really be a big surprise for everybody involved when they actually are upon us. Air Force big right now is going after, the collaborative combat aircraft. CCA is a big part of the Air Force's future vision, and rightfully so. But you take a large number of uncrewed aircraft with some levels of control over a single fighter pilot, but a lot of autonomy and AI built into them. What does that lead to? I mean, the smart people are going after this. Smart scientists are working on it, but I don't know. So I think that these are the things as we really leap ahead, trying to make sure we're ahead in the game. That's going to lead to some interesting situations in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. The rate at which things are developing and changing does feel, quite unprecedented in terms of the human history of us.
Yeah, and we know so much about it now because, I mean, you can say that, I mean, look, the machine gun revolutionized warfare. I mean, in World War I and before that, and in the Boer War in the early 1900s is when it really came to pass, and the kind of glimpse of what that could lead to. But nobody really knew about it because we didn't have a constant stream of social media and news in our face. Now we have so much information and also so much disinformation, and there's a lot of it out there. That's another thing that's concerning as well, that a lot of times that you're looking at things, news source, you're going, is that accurate? It's best case anymore, most news is going to have a subjective flavor to it based on saying there's a completely objective news source out there is getting harder and harder. Most have some level of area they fall on the left-right spectrum. Some are just obviously out there and completely not to be trusted, but there's a lot of people who do. So there's just so much information. Is it accurate? So we're flooded with all this information. So is what we know true about these things? So these things are happening. We may not even have the full story, but we may not just know, but we know something, but it's not even accurate to what is really happening. So just mix it all in. It's again, I won't say it's unprecedented times because a lot of people are going to rush to say, no, it's not. But there are some areas of it that are truly, you'd be hard pressed to find you'd find that comparison in the past.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, the old saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So there is some rhyming here, but I think it is supercharged by just the staggering pace of the technology and the desire to continue to move things forward.
So what career advice do you have for kind of the next generation of, national security defense professionals who are interested in a career path in this sector?
My last job in the Air Force, I was I ran the ROTC, the Air Force ROTC unit here at USF, actually. So that was look, and some relationships I made helped towards landing this home in right now. And I did that for 4 years. And so I had all these cadets, officer candidates, and I would tell them, hey, I have discovered the secret to success in the Air Force. I can tell you exactly how you can be successful in the Air Force. And they go, what is it? And I said, and I boiled it down to 2 words: how to be successful in the Air Force. And I apologize, but those words are don't suck. And it's so ridiculously and so simplistic, but my point is that, look, everything you do, you have to do to your best of your ability. So you have to approach each day with the desire to say, okay, I'm going to try to do things better. I'm going to try to do things a little better than I did yesterday. I'm going to try to make a positive impact on whatever I'm working on today. I'm not just going to phone it in. I'm going to just look for those ways in everything. And it's not just, these big projects or this major operation, whatever, but it's everything you do. It's how you do some minor paperwork. It's how you could say how you drive your car to work. I don't know, that's probably excessive because I'm a fairly offensive driver out there in the Tampa traffic. But it's how you approach that stuff. And I always say, just approach these things, because not everything is going to be wonderful in your Air Force career. But if you approach it in a way that you just seek to do the best you can, and everybody has different levels of talent. I personally consider myself to be of mediocre talent at best, but I would always try to put my work ethic at or equal or better than people around me. And if I could be recognized for that, at least, hey, I'm going to give 100% effort in everything I do, then that's something right there. And I had some success in my career, I'd like to think, because of that. I'd always say there's no such thing as luck. And a lot of people say that. It's opportunity and timing. So you can have opportunity, you can have, it's skill and timing. So there's a lot of people who have skill but don't have the right timing, or they have the right timing and then the right skill. You don't control timing, but you do control skill. You do control where you are at that time in your life, so that if something happens, you execute it well. And, I had a couple significant events over my career, a major, operation to rescue the Vega 3-1 stealth pilot shot down in Serbia in 1999, and then, taking command of the first CV-22 squadron. And the time, other people could have done that. The timing was just that I was there at that time and able to execute successfully. And that way you're able to be successful and you're recognized, okay, you did a decent job with that, Cardoso. Maybe we'll give you a little more responsibility, and on you go. So again, it's overly simplistic, but if you approach your life like that, if you approach your work like that, then good things will normally happen. Maybe not everything you want. It's not a promise, it's not a guarantee, but you will have at least maximize your potential to get to where you seek to get to.
Yeah, that's a great perspective.
There's actually, in front of the ROTC building here at USF, when I retired, my senior cadets, there's bricks and you can inscribe things on it. And my senior cadets bought a brick with my name on it, says "Don't suck." There's a brick that says "Don't suck" in front of the USF building, in front of the RTC building here at USF.
I love that.
My time.
Your words etched in stone.
Crude but simplistic, and it's one you can remember.
It's true.
And if you ask my son, he'd say the same. If you ask my son, he'd say, "Yeah, my dad always says don't suck."
So are there any resources, books, organizations, courses, anything that you found particularly useful in your own career journey that you would recommend to others? I read a lot of history, but not, I think there's a lot to be learned from leaders who have done noteworthy things. That doesn't mean always great things, but noteworthy things. Usually, and a lot of what you do as a leader, it's just how you interact with people. It's how you interact with your team. That's what it all comes down to. And so I find I've learned a lot by how to do that better by reading about people who have been successful or maybe unsuccessful at it even, or people have had both. They've had success or lack of success. And you can kind of get a sense of, okay, not that you need to just do exactly what this person did, that person did, but each person has their own gifts and capabilities, but you can see how other people did things, and you can, learn to understand how that, applies to your environment and your situation. And maybe, again, in the vein of not sucking, just, okay,
this is what, oh, okay, now you think about this thing that happened last week. Oh yeah, okay, maybe that could have done that better. Okay, so now you're in that situation, you can do a little bit better. And you continue to just improve and improve. So I always found it valuable to read, again, when I was in the military history, national security history, and then, some significant leaders from that time as well. So that I always found that valuable. I can't think of a specific, book along that, but I found that very valuable. I think also that, well, I'll just stick with that. I think that's a good answer.
Good one. So looking back, what stands out to you as one of the, most rewarding experiences of your professional journey?
Um, there's two. I would say when I got to lead the stand-up of the CV-22 squadron, that was just an amazing experience. And it really was just one of the highlight 2 years of my life, that we were given this responsibility. We were the first squadron to fly the V-22. We were the ones that were going to, testing had been done by the test units and all that. But as far as, to turn it into an operational capability, you have to train people to then execute, operations on the battlefield with the aircraft. So when we came in, there was no trained people. So we had to create that training pipeline and then train those people to go out and execute the missions for this aircraft, and even figure out how to execute some of these missions, how to employ the aircraft, because you had some ideas, but it wasn't really known. So all this was going to be built over the time. And the V-22, it's completely different. There's nothing like it. It's not a C-130 that doesn't need a runway. It's not a helicopter that goes really fast. It's its own, and I've heard both of those, it's its own thing. And being part of that, and the biggest part of being part of that was, again, this small team in the squadron. Our squadron's pretty small. In fact, I think, let's see, from your vantage point, it'd be that picture back there. There's two pictures. So
Yeah.
the top picture is the maintenance team that was fixing the aircraft, these new aircraft. The bottom picture is the pilots and the flight engineers on the aircraft. And those are two of my favorite pictures for that reason, because that team is small and they understood what the larger mission was and what they were there to do. So it wasn't something I had to, oversee every aspect. I could just give broad guidance based on the broad guidance I was being given as well from my wing commander, from the Air Force in general. And just, okay, guys, go do great stuff now. And they did. And they turned it from just, okay, we have this aircraft, and pretty much that's it, into an entire system of how to pull in new aircrew members, how to train them, how to enable them to understand all the different ways to employ this aircraft, and also how to fix it and generate aircraft sortie, combat capability as expeditiously as possible. Because nobody written the books on that yet. So we were able to do that. But again, the team that we had, it was just the folks that we were there. I mean, even our secretary, she was the first ever secretary of the V-22 squadron, and she took that seriously. And she was fantastic, Michelle Bell. And so everybody was just a part of that, and just being a part of that small group, it was just sublime. It was just a really wonderful experience to go through that with that team, and one I was very sad to leave. A close second would be just my time in the 53, the Pavlo. I spent most of my flying career was in the MH-53 Pavlo. I'm talking waxing philosophically about V-22, but most of my flight time was in the Pavlo. That's where I was as a captain, as a young, flyer, where you're really at the peak of your operational capability in the Air Force. And just the mission and doing the mission with those crews and our teammates in the different squadrons I was in SOF was, I just love those guys. They're all brothers and sisters to me. They always will be. When we see each other, we don't shake hands, we hug each other. I mean, even if I haven't seen them for years, it's because you have this bond that just it's hard to describe to people who haven't lived it. And it was just a very enjoyable part of my life, and something, like I said, going to the special operations, next to marrying my wife, best decision I made, and it's led to those two things I just described.
So looking forward, what developments are you most hopeful about in terms of the future of national security?
Specific thing most hopeful about. I think that as we move forward, things are starting, even as the world is very complex, things are starting to maybe reveal themselves. I mean, there's been some changes over the last year, right, that we didn't expect. Iran is in a very different place than it was a year ago, which is good for us. I think we're continuing to understand just the real threat of China, even as they remain a key trading partner for the US. At the same time, there's so many things that they're doing that we have to be cognizant about. And I think there's a continued understanding of that. So there is starting to be a little bit more comprehension of our overall, international national security space. And that is promising. I think it's still very complex. I think that the technologies we talked about has some concerning aspects to it, but at the same time, if you apply it properly, it can be very valuable. And there's, people talk about, the Pentagon or the military industrial complex. I've been in both, and there's fantastic people in all of them that are trying to do the right thing, that are committed to doing the right thing. And those people are still out there. And I think they're going to continue to try to push things forward to do the right thing, understand the operational environment better and better and better, and apply capabilities, technology, better understanding how we operate and employ to that. So that's a good thing. And I am hopeful. I remain hopeful about that. I remain hopeful of America's place in terms of being the leader, in the international sphere. Like I said, it's a dynamic international environment. It's a dynamic political environment. There's no question about that. But I still think people see America and what we've done and what we represent in a very positive light. I still remain a lot of hope for that.
So any final words of advice or parting thoughts for the audience as we wrap up today, Jim?
No, not really. I really enjoyed the conversation. It's always fun to explore the past a little bit, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the current and the future as well. I think that what we're doing at Global National Security Institute, I'm very excited about that. I enjoy coming to do it every day. I enjoy the team we're working with. I enjoy still being a part of the national security dialogue and contributing to that. Not everybody gets to, and some people do, and they do it in all different ways. And so it's good to be part of that environment, good to be part of those people as well. And it's good to be part of the environment of a large university. USF's a great place to work at. It's a rising university. So, there's a lot to look forward to in the future. So I turned 60 this year. I know some of my compatriots, some have already said they've retired or looking to retire. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. So I think I'm gonna stick around for a few more years and continue doing what we're doing because I'm just enjoying it quite a bit.
Well, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today and share your insights and experiences. It was really interesting to kind of get to know more about your journey and kind of see the people and the kind of situations that shaped you into the professional that you are today, and all the awesome experiences that you've had.
Thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed the conversation as well, Hannah. Anytime.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tipping Spears. We hope this conversation has sparked new ideas and challenged the way you think. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch you next time with another exciting guest.